yesterday, when this story came out of Governor Shapiro's family having the governor's mansion basically almost burned completely to the ground during Passover weekend, I was really upset, confused, watching the clips of him. I've been very emotionally, he clearly looks pretty shell-shocked from it. When I think of the future of the Democratic Party, I think Josh Shapiro is a person that actually has the potential to have real power because I think he's much more moderate and interesting. He's the governor of a very important swing state. I want to show a clip from him at this press conference because I want to discuss the rise of anti-Semitism and why I do think we can't look away from the timing of this arsonist incident.
This type of violence is not okay. This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society. And I don't give a damn if it's coming from one particular side or the other, directed at one particular party or another, or one particular person or another. It is not okay. And it has to stop. We have to be better than this. And we have a responsibility to all be better. If he was trying to terrorize our family, our friends, the Jewish community who joined us for a Passover Seder in that room last night, hear me on this. We celebrated our faith last night proudly, and in a few hours we will celebrate our second Seder of Passover again proudly. No one will deter me or my family or any Pennsylvanian from celebrating their faith openly and proudly.
So the perpetrator admitted to harboring hatred towards Shapiro and said he knew it was possible the family would be home and potentially burn alive if they were there. He said if he ran into Shapiro, he would have beat him with a hammer. People are saying it's unclear if the motivation was anti-Semitism, but I think, I'm just not a person that believes in coincidences in general. I want to read one more tweet for you. I just found this really put the point together. This person said, the fact that people are arguing whether or not it was a far-right MAGA anti-Semite or a far-left anti-Zionist anti-Semite should tell you everything about being Jewish right now. Eve, this is your wheelhouse of what you comment on all the time. What did you make of this story?
I have been reeling ever since I saw the story because my initial reaction to seeing the photographs, I opened up my Instagram app and my somebody that I follow had posted the interior shots of the house having been burned out. And my immediate reaction was, wait, I haven't seen these stills from October 7th before.
God.
So, I immediately, for me, there's no argument. There's no argument against the correlation between what we're seeing come out of Israel on October 7th, what we're seeing in the West as a green light celebration of what happened on October 7th, and then the manifestation of anti-Semitic attacks all over mainland Europe, the United Kingdom, and here in America since that day. I mean, I've been talking about this, as you know, predating the October 7th massacre, and there were many instances of violent anti-Semitism before then too, that were also, by the way, every time that they occurred, the mainstream media would say, well, it's unclear what the motivation is. So I'm kind of tired of that point. Josh Shapiro's home was burned to a cinder on the first night of Passover. Him and his entire family, his 4 children, their 2 dogs, and another family that were there to celebrate Passover were all rescued from the house. The intention was to murder the family. And it's very clear to me this is not a coincidence that it happened on the first night of Passover. The tweet about whether or not these attacks come from the extreme right or the extreme left is valid. I said this morning that, I've been kind of banging on the bell for here in America since 2019, and in the world in general since 2014, and even sometimes before then. I tweeted today that if American Jews don't realize that you are a Jew first and foremost, whether or not you're a Republican or a Democrat by this point in time, after this story, then I don't know if you're ever going to wake up, because this should be setting off the biggest alarm bells about the threat to our lives in this country and around throughout Western civilization right now. That there is a disease, an endemic hatred against Jewish people, and blaming Jewish people for societal ills. That's what this is about. So whether this person, and I've heard that this person's a registered Democrat and an extreme leftist. That's what I was told this morning. But whether this person is an extreme leftist or extreme on the right, what they share in common is a desire to blame the perpetual Jew for whatever gripe they have with society. That's what we're seeing. And that's kind of to explain what that tweet is saying. You know, whoever it is, they meet in the middle as to having this vested interest in painting the Jew as the ultimate criminal, as the ultimate responsibility for everything that's wrong. If you eradicate society of the Jew, then you eradicate the problem. Of course, we know that that has never worked throughout thousands of years of history. So yeah, I mean, today, as I say, I'm still reeling from this story, because, you know, as you know, I went to Israel and the Gaza envelope 3 times since October 7th. I've reported from the front lines there, and I've witnessed the aftermath of the massacre. And to see images like that in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
you know, as I said, the correlation is direct for me.
Yeah, Jamie, I just think this is another like warning shot that people are not paying attention to. He's an extremely prominent governor. He's very popular. He was a vice presidential, pick for Harris when she was running. Are you concerned, and what do you make of this?
Well, it's ironic. Josh Shapiro first came to my attention, and I think to the attention of most Americans who don't live in Pennsylvania, the day that President Trump was shot.
Mhm.
When he emerged, and I thought was really almost presidential. He was very well spoken, calm. He condemned the attack, and I thought he handled it perfectly. I'm like, who is this guy? He's so well spoken, and he seems like he could be president of the United States. And watching him speak, that he's clearly very upset. And it's just it's sad that he's again in the news because of an act of violence. This time, one that's been directed towards him. As a journalist, I try to be really careful about running to conclusions. And just to give an
Mhm.
example, like Eve said that she heard that he was a radical leftist. I was just reading a story that said he hated Joe Biden and had been posting all this anti-Biden stuff. And there's been so many of these horrible attacks where people rush to their side, right? They go to the blue side or the red side, and then it turns out that the person either is of the opposite, maybe your own political persuasion, or just a total crazy person who doesn't really have any definable politics. So I'm just going to wait, before I express views on the particular motive of this individual. I will say, however, that we are 25 years after Joe Lieberman became the first Jewish person on a major
Mhm.
party ticket. And Megan, you knew him better than I did, but I don't remember really there being any anti-Semitism in 2000. I just don't remember it. I was 17. I was a big political junkie. It was a real big deal as a young Jew to have that. I think his Judaism was actually an asset. The fact that he was even an Orthodox Jew was seen as
Mhm.
an asset, particularly after the Clinton years and all the, Michigas and the sects and the interns and all that stuff. To have, a man of really firm moral rectitude and religious observance was seen as an asset to the Democratic Party. And I just don't remember there being much anti-Semitism about Joe Lieberman in 2000. And you contrast that to today, when last year Josh Shapiro, like Lieberman, was being considered to be the VP candidate, and I wrote a piece in the New York Times last fall. You can look it up, where it was all about it was called The Democrats have a Josh Shapiro problem. And I argued that, they basically didn't choose him because he's Jewish.
Hmm.
That he was seen as too much of a liability because he was, too pro-Israel. And we all know what that means, okay?
Yeah.
And that is such a dramatic difference from 2000, right? When you had an Orthodox Jew, okay, like a real Jew, okay, a guy who had to walk, he walked to the Capitol,
Mhm.
and back on the Sabbath. And Josh Shapiro is not near, I think he's a conservative Jew. He's not nearly as observant as Joe Lieberman was, right? And yet, it's a much bigger deal now.